My name is Maya Sullivan. I'm 34 years old, and last Friday I was promoted to Director of Strategic Partnerships at Clearport Logistics. It was supposed to be a celebration, just that. Simple, golden, overdue. We were seated at a long table under hanging lanterns at the Indigo Pier, one of those waterfront restaurants in Charleston where everything feels bathed in approval jazz in the background, waiters moving like stagehands, flickering candlelight bouncing off wine glasses. The sky was soft low pinks and purples blurring across the harbor. Everyone looked perfect. Everyone smiled. And for a moment, I believed it would stay that way. Before I can continue my story, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. I'm always curious who's out there whispering with me in the dark. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. I was sitting between my boss Vanessa and my husband Wes, barely able to taste the crab risotto in front of me because my cheeks were sore from smiling. Vanessa had just clinked her glass, giving this beautiful little toast about my resilience and grace under pressure. My mom teared up. My dad nodded, serious and proud. Wes squeezed my knee. Then I stood up. I raised my glass and said, "Thank you. I've worked hard for this. And tonight, I get to say it out loud. I've been promoted to director." Applause. Cheers. A burst of laughter from someone down the table. Vanessa reached across to squeeze my hand. My mother dabbed at her eyes. I let the moment sit there for just a second. I felt seen. Exactly 3 seconds later, my sister Aubrey gasped. It wasn't the subtle kind, not the oops wrong pipe kind of gasp. It was a stage gasp, loud, wet, attention-thirsty. She clutched her stomach and collapsed onto the hardwood floor between the chairs, knocking a server's tray in the process. The crash echoed through the restaurant. Water spilled. A wine glass shattered. Silverware scattered. People scrambled back like someone had pulled the fire alarm. "Oh God, not again," I heard someone whisper. My mom stood up panicking. "Get water," she shouted. "Call an ambulance." My dad looked pale already, tugging at his shirt collar like he might go down next. And me? I reached into my purse calmly. Wes glanced over confused. "Maya," he whispered. But I was already pairing my phone to the restaurant's Bluetooth speaker. I stood slowly. "Before we call the ambulance," I said loud enough for the whole table to hear, "I think it's time we all watch something." People froze. Chairs half pushed, napkins clutched. Aubrey was still sprawled on the floor, one hand over her forehead, the other twitching like a soap opera actress mid-seizure. I tapped play. There she was. 20 minutes earlier, caught by my dashcam outside the valet station, laughing with her boyfriend, Daniel iced latte in hand. As soon as she announces it, she says on the video, "I'm going down." Like full collapse. Theatrics. That'll steal the night. Daniel laughs, then, "Time it right. You want people to remember it." I let the footage roll another few seconds. Aubrey adjusting her top in the side mirror. "She always gets the spotlight," she said. "Not tonight." I hit pause. Silence. Nobody clapped this time. No gasps. Just the low hum of ambient music and the sound of Aubrey's breathing, suddenly shifting sharper, unsure. My hand didn't shake. Not anymore. Aubrey didn't move at first. Not like she usually did. Usually, there would be a dramatic sit-up, a woozy attempt to stand, maybe a murmured, "What happened?" But after the video stopped playing, after her own voice betrayed her in Dolby Surround, she just lay there, eyes closed, mouth parted, like she was deciding whether to double down or crawl away. No one rushed to help this time. Not even Daniel. He stood behind my father's chair, looking like he wanted to melt through the floorboards. His hands were clenched, and his lips were pressed together so tightly they were white. The iced latte from earlier was still visible in the security footage thumbnail on my phone screen, taunting him. Vanessa, my boss, turned to me slowly. "That her voice?" she asked softly. I nodded. She raised her glass and said to Maya, for always being prepared. A ripple of nervous chuckles passed around the table. My Aunt Maria covered her mouth. My cousin Noah looked straight at me and said, "Damn." And then finally Aubrey stirred. She sat up slowly, brushing imaginary dust off her slinky emerald blouse. Her designer heels caught the light as she pushed herself back into her chair. She didn't look at me. She didn't look at anyone. "I was joking," she said, her voice hoarse. "You seriously recorded me." That's That's really messed up, Maya. I tilted my head. What's messed up, I said, keeping my voice even, is faking a medical collapse every time I succeed. My mother stepped forward, still clutching a crumpled cocktail napkin. Honey, that video. Was that really from tonight? I didn't blink. Yes, Mom. It was 20 minutes before dinner. Right after she parked in a handicap spot she doesn't need. Another ripple, but this one felt colder. Daniel still hadn't moved. Aubrey glanced around, scanning for sympathy. For anyone willing to shift back into her orbit. Her lip trembled just slightly. People know I've had chronic issues, she said, grasping now. Not everything is about you, Maya. I laughed. Not a loud one, just a dry, exhausted kind of laugh. The kind that means I'm done. You're right, I said. It wasn't supposed to be about you, but you made damn sure it was. There it was again, that pause. The collective realization. The gap between what people saw and what they believed. Except now, the footage filled the gap. My dad finally spoke. Quiet, like he was apologizing to the air. I'm sorry we let her do that to you for so long, and that almost broke me. Because for years I'd twisted myself into silence, guilt, denial. I'd been told I was overreacting, to keep the peace, to be the bigger person. But not anymore. Aubrey's face had drained of color. She tried to pull herself together, dabbing her eyes, standing shakily. I'm leaving, she mumbled. I can't, this is toxic. She didn't look at me. She didn't say goodbye. She left, dragging Daniel behind her like a broken accessory. And just like that, the energy shifted. Laughter returned slowly. Glasses refilled. A waiter cautiously picked up the broken stemware. My cousin joked, "Can someone text the academy, she's out of the running." But I wasn't laughing. I sat down, picked up my champagne, and finally tasted that risotto. It was cold, still perfect. And for once I wasn't choking it down through a forced smile. It wasn't just this dinner. It never was. If this had been a one-time thing, maybe I could have brushed it off. Maybe I could have said she was overwhelmed or anxious, or whatever excuse our family clung to like prayer beads. But this was a pattern, a mosaic of moments that had all cracked the same way. Like when I graduated from Emory, and I stood on stage magna cum laude speech in hand heart full. I remember looking out at the crowd trying to find their faces, only to see chaos in the fourth row, Aubrey pale and shaking, being carried out of the auditorium by two cousins, one holding her bag, the other steadying her like she'd been shot. She told people it was heat exhaustion. But when I asked her later, she shrugged and said, "You know how my body reacts when I'm stressed. Or my engagement party." I had this little vision board of a garden brunch, peonies and Prosecco, an old vinyl playing under strings of lights. The moment I finished thanking everyone for coming, Aubrey leaned against the cake table and accidentally knocked the entire two-tier lemon raspberry onto the patio stones. The baker later told me she saw Aubrey glance back before she stumbled. Even my grandmother's memorial wasn't safe. I was asked to read the eulogy, something I'd stayed up all night writing. Right as I took the podium, Aubrey clutched her chest and dropped to her knees. Heart palpitations, she said, wheezed, sobbed. We had to pause the service. I never got to read the eulogy out loud. Not then, not later. Each time it happened, I doubted myself a little more. Maybe I was too sensitive. Maybe she really was sick. Maybe my timing was just always unlucky. And each time our mother would take me aside. Just let her have this one, Maya. She's going through a lot, or she didn't mean to. You know her heart. Her heart had perfect timing. It struck me later how nobody ever told her to stop. They just told me to understand. Until I started tracking it. Not with intention at first. Just jotting things down. When they happened. What she said. Who was there? After the third or fourth incident, I started calling it the Aubrey eclipse. A new moon of melodrama that always blocked out my sun. When I got the promotion call, something inside me shifted. I knew she'd try something. I could feel it coming like a thunderstorm in my bones. That's when I checked my dashcam settings. Enabled audio, just in case. People think recording someone you love is cruel. But you know what's crueler? Being asked to shrink so someone else can expand. That night at Indigo Pier, I finally reached the edge. The place where the apology loop broke, and I stopped asking for people to see what they didn't want to see. I showed them. I didn't need to scream or cry or shake anymore. I just needed them to hear her say it for herself. After Aubrey left, the restaurant was quiet. in a way I didn't expect. Not the awkward kind, not the brittle hush after a fight. This was different, like someone had opened a window and let the air shift. The kind of silence that settles when something heavy has been carried out of the room. No one mentioned her name again that night. Not even my mother. She sat at the edge of the table, still holding that crumpled napkin in her lap, like it might explain something. Her eyes stayed low-focused on the untouched shrimp cocktail in front of her. She kept folding and unfolding the napkin, like she didn't know what else to do with her hands. Wes leaned toward me. "You okay?" he whispered. I nodded. But it wasn't really a yes. I didn't know what I was yet, only that I wasn't sorry. Vanessa reached for her bag and pulled out a little notebook. "Not to be inappropriate," she said with a wink, "but if you ever decide to write a memoir, I'd like to publish it." That made me laugh, honest, unguarded. The first real one all evening. Later, as the plates cleared and the last of the Prosecco fizzled out, my father clinked his glass gently against mine. Just once. A soft sound like punctuation on a sentence that had taken years to finish. "I should have seen it," he said. "I'm sorry we made you deal with that alone." I didn't say anything at first. I just swallowed the lump in my throat and let the apology hang there, finally uninterrupted. Because that silence, the one that followed his words, that was the one I'd been waiting for. Not the performance silence that Aubrey used to manufacture sympathy, but the kind that follows truth. The kind that replaces screaming with recognition. I looked around the table. My team was still there. My boss, my colleagues. Nobody had left. Nobody had judged. If anything, they saw me more clearly now. And the best part, nobody rushed to fill the space Aubrey left behind. No one tried to excuse her or defend her or offer up stories about how she means well. That era was over. I didn't have to brace for the usual detour of apologies made on her behalf. I realized something, then she wasn't just losing control. She was losing her audience. It was terrifying to understand that for people like Aubrey, attention is oxygen. Take it away, and the performance dies. And in that moment, she had no stage, no encore, no spotlight to grab. Just a room of people who had stopped clapping. When Wes and I walked to the car later, I looked back at the Indigo Pier once. Just once. The lights were still warm. The music still played. Life moved on. And so did I. I slid into the passenger seat, phone in hand, message notifications already piling up. Some from relatives who'd been at the table. Some from cousins who weren't. A few from people I hadn't spoken to in years. They were just one-liners mostly. I saw the video, finally. Thank you. Proof that the silence that followed wasn't emptiness. It was awakening. The next morning, I opened my laptop and clicked into a folder I'd labeled Eclipses months ago. I didn't name it out of cruelty. I named it because that's what it felt like, Aubrey eclipsing my milestones. My joy, my light always shadowed. The folder was packed. Screenshots, voice memos, emails. A DM from one of her ex-boyfriends time-stamped 2 years ago, saying she told my sister she had early MS symptoms, so I wouldn't propose. I believed her. Broke it off. Found out later it was all made up. There was a note from my college roommate. "Remember your scholarship banquet?" She collapsed in the hallway. She told me she timed it. Even one from our cousin Jess, who messaged me the night of the dinner. She pretended to have a panic attack at my baby shower. I was in labor a week later, and she told people the baby was copying her drama. Each message was like a puzzle piece snapping into place. I hadn't known how many people had quietly endured it, brushed it off, swallowed their doubt, doubted themselves. The common thread, nobody ever spoke up. Nobody ever called it out. Until now. It hit me, then I wasn't collecting this to expose her. Not really. I wasn't out for revenge. I didn't want a takedown. I wasn't trying to build a case for the world. I was trying to build a wall for myself. Proof. A boundary of receipts so solid no one could gaslight me into dust again. I spent the day responding to some of the messages. Carefully, kindly. I wasn't interested in gossip. I just thanked them. Told them I understood. That I believed them. That's when it hit me. Maybe I wasn't the only one who needed the truth to be named. Maybe none of us were crazy. Maybe we just needed a record. Something to point to and say, see, it wasn't just me. Later that evening, I opened my journal and wrote one line. I'm not the villain in her story. I'm the historian. The difference is everything. Aubrey had spent her life directing the spotlight with tears and tumbles, with sudden ailments and mistimed gasps. I'd spent mine adjusting to the darkness that followed, but now I had the brightness of truth. And the best part, I didn't have to wield it like a weapon. I could just hold it. She could say whatever she wanted. She could lie, spin, repost, cry. But she couldn't erase the footage. She couldn't delete the truth from the people who had seen it play out. Not anymore. That was the shift I didn't need to convince anyone. I'd already stopped bleeding for her applause. And for the first time in my life, I didn't want her to apologize. I just wanted peace. That's what this was all about, not proving I was right, but proving I could finally let go. 3 days passed before the retaliation came. It didn't arrive through Aubrey directly, of course. That's not how she works. No apology, no confrontation. Just whispers, reshaped versions of reality delivered by couriers in the form of relatives. It was my mother who called. "Your sister's saying the video was edited?" She said, voice tight, like she'd been rehearsing it. "That it was taken out of context. That you ambushed her." I didn't respond right away. Just let the warmth rise crest and burn off like steam in a closed room. "Do you believe her?" I asked. There was a pause. Too long. Long enough to make me think maybe the old script was about to repeat. Then no, not anymore. I nearly dropped the phone. That silence between us. It was 20 years of me being told I was too sensitive finally breaking. A crack down the middle of every moment I'd been asked to understand her without anyone trying to understand me. "Good," I said. "Because I've got more where that came from," she gasped. "Maya, you're not going to ruin her, are you?" I looked at the folder still open on my laptop. The web of moments, screenshots, timestamps. The chaos I hadn't created, but had always been tasked with cleaning up. "No," I said, voice cool. "I'm going to let her ruin herself, in full view." What followed was predictable. Cousins started liking Aubrey's cryptic Instagram stories, black squares with captions like, "People will believe anything if it's dramatic enough." An old high school friend posted a throwback photo of the two of them with a vague, "Love you always" underneath. Her yoga clients commented supportive hearts on a reel of her meditating under a willow tree. Eyes closed captioned, "When they attack your peace, double your stillness." She was trying to reclaim the narrative, but there was a noticeable absence this time. No public outrage, no call-outs, no flood of support. Just static. Like people were watching, waiting, but not reacting the way she wanted. And she couldn't stand it. The next day, my dad texted me a screenshot of a message she'd sent him. "I'm worried about Maya. This obsession with hurting me isn't normal." He added only, "She always flips it like this." "You okay?" I stared at the text, something in my chest pulling tight, then releasing. I replied, "I'm not hurting her. She's just finally feeling what truth sounds like." And I was okay. Better than okay. Because for once, I wasn't gaslighting myself back into silence. I wasn't second-guessing the moment or softening the impact to make it easier for everyone else. This was the version of me that didn't need to apologize for having proof, or a voice, or boundaries. This was the version that didn't confuse love with tolerance. And I wasn't hiding her behavior anymore, just because she couldn't survive without controlling the story. I was simply done. And when you stop feeding the illusion, the gaslight finally goes out. It was the message from a woman named Justine that caught my eye. She DM'd me after someone shared the dinner clip on a subreddit about emotional boundaries. I hadn't posted it. I never would have. But once it was out there, the story took on a pulse of its own. Justine wrote, "My sister used to fake asthma attacks anytime I got attention. At my wedding, she threw herself into the fountain and blamed low blood sugar. I thought I was crazy for years. Thank you for showing us we're not alone." I stared at that message for a long time. Then I opened the others. Hundreds of women, sisters, daughters, cousins. Some had been erased in the same way I had always the understudy to a one-woman crisis machine. Others were still stuck inside it, trying to prove what no one wanted to believe. And then came the email. A producer from a mental health podcast out of Atlanta, the family thread. They'd seen the clip. They'd read the comments. They wanted to talk. "We're not interested in drama," the host said on the call. "We want to talk about how emotional sabotage hides in plain sight, how people weaponize fragility, how illness becomes currency." I agreed, but with one condition: I wouldn't name my sister. This wasn't about revenge. It was about resonance. The interview was raw. I told them everything. About the scholarship banquet, the knocked-over wedding cake, the moment at Grandma's funeral when I realized no one would ever tell her to stop. I talked about how I'd spent years gaslighting myself, how the family always said, just let her have this, Maya, don't make a scene, and how this time I did make a scene. Not with tears, not with rage, with proof. The episode aired 3 days later. By that night, my inbox had quadrupled. Therapists reposted quotes from it. One line went viral. Some sisters faint, some sisters fight. I just finally pressed play. I wasn't prepared for the response. There was a thread on Twitter where people shared their own dinner table ambushes. Another where someone wrote, "Watching Maya speak made me call my sister and set a boundary for the first time in a decade." Even my college advisor emailed me, "You always had this strength in you. It's powerful to watch you use it out loud." And for the first time, I didn't feel like I had to explain why I'd said something, or how I'd said it, or if I'd gone too far. Because the thing about truth is, it doesn't beg for acceptance. It just is. The following week, I was asked to sign copies of the podcast feature that got published as an essay in a wellness journal. The event was at a local bookstore downtown. Line wrapped around the block. Women with daughters, men with notes, people saying thank you in quiet, tearful ways. And as the line finally dwindled, I saw her. Sunglasses on, even though the sky was overcast. Lipstick a little too harsh for 10 a.m. Hair pulled so tight it looked like a mask. Aubrey, standing by the exit, waiting. She waited until the last signature was scrawled. The final hug exchanged the last thank you, for your voice whispered across the table. Then she stepped forward, silent arms, folded sunglasses still on, even though we were shaded beneath the awning. "Riley," she said. And just like that, she used my name. Not Maya, not sis, not you. It felt too sharp in her mouth, like it hurt. "You need to stop this," she hissed, low-controlled. The fury was there, swimming just under her skin, but she was too exposed now to unleash it fully. Her performance had lost its stage, and it showed. I looked at her. Really looked. Her blouse was wrinkled. Her designer tote slung over her shoulder, like a misplaced costume piece. She looked tired, deflated, like she hadn't expected to be the one standing in the shadows for once. "I haven't said your name once," I said, keeping my voice calm. "You're the one who keeps confirming it's about you." "Don't play innocent," she snapped. "You humiliated me in front of the whole family." I tilted my head. "No, you humiliated yourself. I just hit play." She took a step closer. Her hands were shaking now, but she clenched them like she could keep it all in, like she still had a script to follow. "You think you're the hero," she said, almost laughing. "Just because you got lucky with a recording, you've always been obsessed with control." I felt something inside me settle. Not anger, not revenge. Just stillness. "I don't want power over you," I said, pausing. "I just don't want to live under you anymore." And there it was. Her mouth twitched. But for once, she didn't have a comeback. No gasp, no tears, no fainting spell, just breathing, labored, uneven, and silence. Because it wasn't about the dinner, or the video, or the podcast. It was about me finally saying out loud what I'd whispered to myself for years. That her chaos wasn't my responsibility. That her pain wasn't a license to erase mine. That I didn't have to bleed to keep the peace. "You ruined our family," she whispered. I shook my head. "No, I just refuse to let you keep ruining me." She blinked, and for the first time, I saw something flicker, confusion maybe, or the dawning horror of someone who's finally lost their audience. She turned, walked to her car, didn't look back, and I didn't chase her. Because healing isn't a rescue mission, it's a boundary, a quiet, firm, unshakable line. Later that night, I lit a candle, put my phone in a drawer. No posts, no receipts, no reactions, just peace. The kind that doesn't need proof. Because my story wasn't about exposing her anymore. It was about reclaiming me. It happened 2 weeks later at our cousin Kayla's wedding out in Asheville. I almost didn't go. Not because I was afraid of seeing Aubrey again, I wasn't, but because I didn't want to risk becoming the spectacle. I didn't want to feel everyone watching us across the room, bracing for another collapse, another twist. But I went. Not for her. For me. The barn was lit with golden strands of Edison bulbs, and the air smelled like wildflowers and peach pie. I wore green, a quiet, confident shade I used to avoid, because it was her color. But not anymore. When I walked in, I felt the shift immediately. People looked at me differently. Not like I was fragile, not like I was dramatic, but like I was clear, whole, untouchable, in a way that wasn't cruel, it was just earned. I spotted her in the back row. Aubrey. Alone. She didn't make a scene. She didn't cry, or gasp, or fake a limp, or whisper loudly about anxiety meds. She just sat there, small, still, like someone who knew the world wasn't turning around her anymore. During the toasts, I was asked to speak. I almost said no, but I saw Kayla's face, hopeful, joyful, and I couldn't turn down the chance to honor that. So I stood. I talked about love, about building things that last, about how some storms don't pass until you walk out of them barefoot and breathless, and how you're never the same, but maybe that's the point. No interruptions, no wine glasses dropped, no fainting in the background. Aubrey stayed seated. After the wedding, as I walked to my car beneath the early spring moon, she was waiting again. This time, not in sunglasses or drama. Just her. Hands in her jacket pockets. Eyes softer. Shoulders slumped. I liked your speech, she said. I nodded. Thanks. I'm not asking to come back in, she added quickly. I just wanted to say, I know. I looked at her. This person who used to pull all the strings and fall apart when she wasn't at the center. She looked older, not just tired, but thinner emotionally, like her armor had worn out from years of needing it. I'm not angry anymore, I said quietly. Good, she whispered. You looked lighter up there. I am. We stood in the gravel for a minute. No hugging, no apologies begging to be accepted. Just two women on opposite ends of a long, complicated history. I wish we could have been something better, she said. We still can, I replied, just separately. She nodded. A little stunned maybe, but also maybe relieved. And then she turned, walked away, got into her car. I didn't watch her drive off. I just unlocked my own, slid into the seat, and sat with the stillness. There was no music, no monologue, no aching need to be understood. Just a quiet exit from the wreckage I used to live inside. And the door didn't slam behind me. It closed soft, like peace. The note was waiting for me 2 days later, tucked under the windshield wiper of my car in the parking lot of the community center where I'd just spoken on a panel about emotional boundaries. It was a folded square of off-white paper, no envelope, no name. Just one line written in unmistakable handwriting. I'm sorry, I don't know who I am without being the one who hurts you. I didn't move. I just stood there, one hand on the hood of my car, the other holding a piece of my past, unraveling itself in 7 trembling words. It was her handwriting. I'd recognize those loopy, chaotic R's anywhere. The same penmanship that once left sticky notes on my door, reading, "Sorry, I didn't mean to." The same scrawl that filled birthday cards with apologies disguised as jokes. This one felt different. Not a manipulation, not bait. A confession. I didn't text her. I didn't call. I didn't even mention it to my mother. Instead, I took the note home, opened the drawer where I used to keep old family photos I was too ashamed to display, and placed it inside. Folded once, carefully, not out of spite, not for revenge, just for memory. Because she was right. She didn't know who she was without the role. And maybe I didn't either, not until I stepped out of the script. That night, my daughter Layla climbed into my lap with her flashcards. She was practicing a speech for school. What's the topic? I asked, brushing a crumb from her cheek. She grinned. Standing up for yourself, even if it makes people uncomfortable. My breath caught, not with pain, with awe. That's a powerful thing, I said. She leaned into me. I learned it from you. And that was the moment I knew the cycle had broken. Because it wasn't about exposing Aubrey anymore. It wasn't about right or wrong spotlight or silence. It was about not passing down a legacy of shrinking. It was about raising a girl who believed her voice didn't need to ask permission to exist. Across town, I imagined Aubrey sitting in her apartment, maybe scrolling through comments that had dried up messages that no longer rushed to defend her. Maybe she was deleting old posts. Maybe she wasn't. It didn't matter anymore. Because I wasn't playing in her story now. I had left the table, moved on from the game. And the life I was building brick by brick, word by word, it didn't need a villain. It just needed truth. No curtain call, no dramatic exits. Just a quiet final shift that no one else would see but me. And I slept that night without bracing for the next act. Because for once there wasn't one. Have you ever held your breath during your own success? Because someone else always found a way to steal the air, I spent years letting someone else's storms dictate my weather. But the moment I pressed play on the truth, everything changed. Not out of cruelty, but clarity. If you've been there, silenced, gaslit, erased, I want to hear your story. Drop it in the comments. You're not alone anymore. And if this resonated with you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs it. Because healing doesn't always look like forgiveness. Sometimes it looks like a firm, quiet exit. And that, too, is love.